Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Batwoman. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Okay, so let's break down like this beginning where it's like, okay, so Luke and Mary trying to get, Beth through the checkpoint, and I love both of them trying to come up with different excuses. And she's like, Mary's like, what if I'm pregnant? And she's like, oh, I'm going into like, what was it, anti-phlegmatic shock or whatever. And then it's just like, and they're going back and forth about like, oh, Kate, and Mary was like, can you at least lie or something? Like I was like, how are you going to get your way around this? But it's like, it's like, all right. Mary gets to play, do you know who I am type of situation, and it was working, but you know, it is kind of interesting because they tell you to get out. It's like, once again, her dad is your boss. I mean, granted, I guess he's in jail, so not currently your boss, but still, it's just kind of like, well, you kind of pushing her and Luke around like that was kind of a little, But I was like, oh, this is going to get messy. But luckily, Batwoman came through and, luckily tied everyone up. I even love Beth being like, oh my God, you missed it. Batwoman came to save us. And Kate's like, really? That's interesting. I even love Mary being like, yeah, she kind of owes me one. And Beth is, Kate and Luke kind of look at each other like, really? Okay. But at the same time, there's a whole situation with Jacob meeting with that doctor that Mira's trying to meet with last episode, and I thought was so interesting. Because obviously he was reluctant to take the case, but now he's taking on with someone. I was like, that's interesting. But also he said, yeah, someone able to take skin and form it to a face. I mean, it seems so impossible. I said it before. I literally paused the TV. I was like, what? Shut up. I literally had the same argument last time. The world you live in? You can't tell me, you literally live in a world where the impossible is possible. And I'm saying, this ain't even just, this is a pre-crisis that, obviously you had metahumans running around. That's why I'm like, what? Including the fact this is Gotham, ladies and gentlemen. It's Gotham. You can't tell me the weird shit that goes down in Gotham. No way. This seems like this is out of the ordinary. But to be fair, this might end up being one of those shows where, like, the outside, like, stuff doesn't ever touch. I mean, because to be fair, this now takes place, but because of post-crisis, Supergirl exists on this Earth, Black Lightning exists on this Earth, so there's metahumans and aliens running around. It's like, you can't tell me the impossible is... The impossible is already possible, and the even more impossible became even more possible. Come on. But then later on, when the reveal is like, oh, that turns out to be Johnny's dad, it was like, that makes sense why at first he wouldn't take the case from Mary, because he knew it would implicate his son. So, but I guess he's used this as an opportunity because he was like, oh, I'll make blah 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 look into this, because he's, it's like now seeing that basically Mouse is being captured, he wants to take this opportunity now to kind of, it's interesting because obviously that's backstory we still haven't gotten into, because we've kind of seen, Beth's awakening as Alice and what that means. But beyond that, we never actually got to see how they both got away from Mouse's dad, And even Mouse being like, I thought you were dead. Which is also interesting, too, to see that his dad can do what he can do. I mean, I guess it makes sense it would come out of somewhere, but at the same time, it's like, it almost seemed like Mouse didn't even know his dad could do that. I mean, maybe that's always been his secret talent, but he never really had to utilize it. But he made this whole point of like, oh, he wanted to basically make the world, make it better. He kept the son always in his mind. It's like, all I did was protect you and try to make the world a better place for you. And when you thought I was dead, I did that on purpose. I guess he's trying to implicate like, oh, I allowed you to kind of spread your wings and kind of live the life. I prepared you for this. But also it's like, I lived the life that I deserve to live. And I'm like, okay. So it's interesting. So I guess the whole thing was like, like I said, maybe in the future we'll get a flashback to kind of like dive more into that. But I didn't expect that turn of like, I thought like maybe he'll be an evil guy, just like, but then the moment he started talking, I'm like, you're Mouse's dad in disguise. And like I said, it didn't seem like Mouse knew that it also makes sense why he's able to do what he does, because either because he's always had the talent, he just never knew it, or maybe he did, but maybe like constructing the mask for, Mouse, Johnny was a little more difficult than making them for himself. Like I said, I'm curious to kind of really dive into that. But obviously, this whole situation, both Beths are in very bad condition. They're both basically on a molecular level. They're deteriorating. And it's like, I also love that moment of like, the back and forth. It's almost like this cute moment between her and Luke, because like they're talking all nerdy and they kind of both stop and smile. I'm like, oh, are we setting something up there? Okay. maybe. And you have like Kate being like, okay, I didn't understand a single damn word. Like, you know, anyone want to talk like a normal person with this situation? So, you know, obviously Beth is going through this, and so is Alice. She sneaks in and visits Mouse, and he was like, oh, wait, the woman who looked just like you. And obviously Beth was like, Alice was like, wait, what? Which is interesting, because at the same time this is all going down, there's a target on Beth's back. It's a kill order. Obviously Kate's in that position where she's like trying to get, you know, Beth out of town, because she's trying to at least, it's not necessarily about protecting Beth. I mean, Alice kind of is, but it's also about protecting Beth as well. So it's like, if Beth is out and about, she's going to get killed. So it turns into a situation of like, okay, so how do we handle this situation? Kate wants to go talk to Sophie, but it's like, well, you can't really do that, because then you'd have to explain the whole multiverse situation. It's like, all right, there was this thing called Crisis, where the infinite Earths collapse into one, and if you don't believe me, just go ask Flash and Supergirl. Also, I promise you I'm not Batwoman. It's like, yeah, that's a complicated thing, because you have to be like, I know, for whatever reason, I know Supergirl and the Flash, you know, they'll back this, you know, so that's the whole thing. Complicated notion. It's a complicated thing being the only ones who know the truth, who experienced everything. But obviously, like I said, because of John and everything, as well as other people just being informed about everything that's happened, you know, so. But, you know, there was this moment where Kate's obviously trying to talk to Sophie about, like, well, because the fact of the matter is, it isn't just about this Beth thing. It's mainly about that, but she's saying, like, well, that's also a precursor to the fact is, look at what you guys are doing. You're kind of like cutting around the law a little bit, you know, because you're so desperate to get Alice that, you know, you're actually kind of becoming even what did Sophie say at the beginning? It's like, oh, they have to decide whether they're more afraid of Alice or us. I'm like, I don't think you should be saying that. I don't think that message had the same hurrah behind it like you thought it was. It kind of makes it sound like you guys are terrible people too. But it's just like, because Sophie blames herself, because she's like, Alice got away because of me. This all falls on me. She's even saying like any victims of Alice's are on her. So she's so desperate to kind of correct the mistake that she made. She's potentially going to make an even bigger one. So it turns into a situation of like, okay, she's not willing to kind of back down because, you know, Alice needs to be stopped. But it's like, are you really just going to, but it's like, it is a thing of kind of like you'll potentially lose yourself down this route. Like, obviously, once again, Batwoman's in that complicated situation because obviously Kate has a bias in this situation of obviously I don't want you to kill my sister. Either one, whether it be Beth or Alice, you know, because obviously, once again, because of Crisis, Kate doesn't feel the same way she felt prior to Crisis. You know, that experience and meeting that other, everything she went through, whether it be that other Bruce or everything, it made her see like, you know, revenge, like how far down that rabbit hole you can end up going and end up falling, you know? And there was even this moment where Kate is, you know, as Batwoman is trying to tell Sophie, like, you know, trust me to do this. And she touches on her shoulder, and I'm like, because obviously their relationship is different, but I'm like, is this supposed to kind of mirror, like, Batman and Gordon's relationship? That's what I was curious about. You know, like I said, obviously it's a different dynamic because Sophie and, Kate dated, but still, that's why I'm curious. It's, you know, it's like, oh yeah, a cop, because obviously out of any of the cops, Jacob kind of had his issues with Batwoman, but the fact of the matter is Sophie's kind of been the cop that's been the most I say cop, but you know, with quotes around it, cop that's been okay with Batwoman. So that's why I'm kind of wondering, is that what they're like? I'm sure I'm probably reading too much into it, but that's just kind of what immediately came to my mind. I was like, oh, I never thought about it until that moment where Kate touched her shoulder. I was like, that seems like a very like opposite, you know, on the same side of the coin, just opposite spectrums of the coin, like, you know, both wanting justice, one just going after it from a vigilante standpoint, which you could make the argument Crows are kind of going full vigilante now, but regardless. Sophie wasn't willing to kind of back down. She couldn't just trust this up to Batwoman. She felt like, you know, obviously she had to put an end to the situation. Obviously, Alice ends up tracking down, you know, Beth, just as Beth had talked about the fact is her and Luke couldn't find a solution for this. It's like the only way this is going to end is like one of the Beths has to die because essentially there's not enough room in the multiverse. And I was wondering about that too because obviously we had that whole situation with all the other Brainies, but I guess their situations are different. Maybe it would have affected them eventually, but maybe because they're aliens and they have a different biology, like their situations are different. Whereas Beth and Alice are literally the same person And then I guess maybe that's another thing too, because all those brainies. Well, no, because obviously, yeah, it has to just be because they have a different makeup, like genetic makeup, than like they are legitimately machines, even though they're an alien species. They are machines anyway. So like, whereas well, I don't know what their species technically count as machines. They are they? Be considered? I think they'd be considered living beings. So it's a whole technicality. I think, like I say, I think it's just because of the alien genetics that they aren't affected the same way that they weren't affected the same way Alice and Beth are. So now Alice is hearing the whole thing about the multiverse and getting to see this other version of herself, which obviously is secretly on the inside a little heartbreaking because she likes who she is as Alice, but at the same time, upon hearing like, wait, you didn't go through, like, wait, not only are you smart and perfect and all this, you didn't go through what I went through. You didn't have to worry about that. It's like, why? And Kate was reluctant to say anything, and even Beth didn't say anything because she knew how painful it would be, but Beth was like, she never went through the crash, and then Alice pieced it together. So yours, Kate, was able to save you. I always wondered what mine would have been like if you weren't so scared to just stand there. Which obviously you can look at the interesting parallels of what that creates, because obviously Kate being the paragon of courage, and obviously she in retrospect is probably looking back like, I didn't have the courage back then. If I did, I could have saved my sister. Once again, this is one Earth. Who's to say on how the multiverse, the infinite Earths out there, who's to say there wasn't one out there where you did do that and you died? Who's to say this isn't the one universe? Who's to say your universe is the one universe where you both didn't die? Well, two universes, like that one where you actually saved her and you both didn't die, and the one where you didn't save her and you both didn't die, but if you tried to, maybe like 8 out of 10 times you would have died. So I'm curious about that. I mean, there's an infinite number of possibilities. So these could literally be the only two versions in the multiverse where things ended up like the ways they did. But who knows? But well, obviously Alice is desperate about finding kind of her own cure, so she ends up leaving, especially as she tried to like kill Beth. And I love Kate caught the knife, and Beth was like, how did you do that? It's like, oh, right. I was like, I almost like something on my right. You don't know she's Batwoman, right? So that's a whole thing. And obviously Alice goes to Mary, and it's like, oh, I saved your life. And it's almost like, wait, what are you talking about? It's like, well, I guess in her twisted mind, it's like, I gave you the antidote, so I kind of saved your life. It's like, yeah, after you framed my dad for murdering my mom, who you murdered, so why in the hell would I help you? But in the end, it turns out what it is that the cure that Alice gave her could be the cure to saving her. So and it was so interesting, it's like at the end of the day, like, Alice was kind of like, oh, no, come on, Mary, you can't just let me die. It's like, don't you like the whole do no harm. It's like, really? No. We're not bringing up my ethics in this situation when you're literally a serial killer who one of your victims was my mom. So middle fingers to you type of situation, especially for her, because it's like there's a much more deserving person out there. She met Beth. She knows Beth. It's like, oh, she deserves this, antidote way more than you do. Obviously, Alice calls in the Crows, and I'm like, oh, this is going to end bad, because she calls them to attack Wayne Manor, because it's like, oh, no, the Wayne building, to be like, oh, Alice is there. Beth did bring up some interesting stuff about like, oh, your soulmate and everything, which she never told Kate who it is, which part of me was like, is that supposed to be like, is it going to be Sophie type of situation that, yeah, they kind of have their on and off thing, but maybe it's kind of like a Oliver and Felicity or Barry and Iris that is just meant to be, that you might be broken up now, but you're always meant to find. I mean, like I said, I'm not that well-versed in Batwoman, so I don't know if she has like her equivalents. Like I said, like, because when it comes to superheroes, like always, like, Clark and Lois. Clark and Lois is the one, definitely. I mean, it's interesting because I don't know what the Bat family's love life is like, because I obviously like Batman. I mean, he plays up the whole Playboy situation, but obviously being Batman doesn't present, the dating opportunities. Even Kate kind of brings that up too. It's already compromised any attempts at relationships, because it's always a part you kind of have to hide from. But it's like, well, if you ended up telling Sophie the truth, which there will be a time I think she will be able to accept it without issue. We'll see. But maybe it's not even Sophie. Maybe it's someone else we haven't met yet. Maybe when you get introduced to them, you're like, oh yeah, I know so and so. Kate and this person had multiple relationships over the course of the many different runs in the comic books or something like that. Maybe something like that, or maybe that person is Sophie. Well, we'll have to wait and see. But it's like, oh, the building is surrounded and everything. I was like, oh, this doesn't look good. Where to go? All right, my dummy. I'm talking about myself. It's like, right, there's an entrance to the Batcave. I was like, how are you going to get out of the bed? Oh, it's like, take her to the Batcave. And Beth's like, wait, what? And now she finds out about Kate being a Batwoman, because she had already talked about the fact is that she already kind of had a little bit of jealousy for Kate, because despite everything, like, the one thing that Kate kind of had over her was the whole having a soulmate situation. But now it's like, oh, okay, so now I found something to be jealous of on this earth. You're literally Batwoman. And kind of realizing, like, Kate explains that basically because of that accident, it's like, because why would you dress up, and save all these people? And it's like, well, because I couldn't save you on this earth that day. It's like, you save all these other, sisters and mothers because you couldn't save me and our mom on this earth. But, but Beth says it's more than that, it's courage, and I like that. Once again, showing, why she is, in fact, the paragon of courage. So I thought that was neat. But now it turns into a situation of Mary's like, all right, here's the cure. Now, pick. You basically have to pick one, which, it's like, no, can't we just split it up? It's like, no, because one needs to have advantage over the other one. So if you give the cure to one, it will mean killing the other. And that's the only way, because if we split the cure, we're literally going to be back in this situation. You need to let one have the upper hand long enough for the other one to die so that we can get, and now, Kate's in that complicated situation because Mary's like, the choice is super obvious. Save that awesome person, Beth, not Alice, who once again killed my mother. But the complicated thing is, like, obviously Kate, it's like, no matter what you do, these are still your sisters. One is kind of more your sister than the other one. I mean, even that's a complicated, loaded thing, because it's like, well, Beth is more like the Beth that you knew, but she's from a different earth. She's not your Beth. Then there's Alice, who is your Beth, but she's the furthest thing from your Beth. So that's a complicated thing of, like, obviously you want to save your actual sister, but it's like, but this is the better person. I should save her because killing Alice is actually the best thing. Because he even ends up even explaining it, because for her it's like, I was unable to save you, so maybe in this shape you can find some sort of peace. And so, Beth was like, are you sure that this is the choice you want to make? It for her, it was, it was kind of like, it was a hard choice, but it's like, it's a choice that was necessary. So if she had to save anyone, why not say kind of the better version of Beth? Which even Alice is like, and I even love that thing where Alice was, hallucinating on Death's door, and she sees Catherine, and Catherine being like, oh, yeah, you're so sure that she'll save you. It's like, it's like, despite everything that I've done, like, I actually knew your sister longer than you did, which is actually kind of a, wow, like, stab in the heart to say that. But also the thing is, it's like, despite all the terrible stuff I did, at least I had remorse. You have none. So it's like, but Alice is like, no matter what, Kay will realize at the end that she'll pick me. And Catherine's like, I hope for your sake she does. But if she doesn't, I'll be saving a seat in hell for you. I'm like, woo, dude. But then, but the way the scene was presented, like when Kate showed up later, I was like, is this actually in Alice's head? And Kate still hadn't decided, or Kate did decide, and that the Kate that she was seeing was in her head. I was wondering about that, but it ended up being the real Kate. So now, obviously, Luke getting Beth out of town on the Bat bike, which is pretty dope. But also it's that thing of, like, Alice being so brokenhearted, but, like, dying in Kate's arms, and now it's like, I was like, that kind of sucks. I was like, is this really how it's going to be? I was like, are we going to get a twist where it turns out good Beth has actually been evil the entire time? I was like, there's got to be some twist to this. I don't know. And then we see Sophie pointing a gun at Beth, I was like, oh, come on, really? After she gave her the cure and everything, but Sophie back down, I'm like, oh. I was like, oh, some random cop is going to show up. Nope, turns out not to be some random cop. Turns out to be Mouse's dad, and it's like, wow, the universe has a sick, twisted sense of humor. That's super messed up. Just because it's like, obviously Sophie didn't pull the trigger. She was going to call for backup to get her arrested. But obviously he was trying to kill, like, he wanted to get rid of Alice because, Alice is such a bad influence on, my Johnny. The fact of the matter is she turned him against me, made him betray me. She's not your family. I brought her in as a plaything, a playmate, but the fact of the matter is she tricked you and blah, 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 blah. So he ends up killing, sadly, the wrong Beth, which now that Beth is dead, which we can assume she is since the other Alice got better. And it's like, you let me die. Well, shit. It's like, oh, come on, dude. That's the biggest middle finger. Especially sucks, too, because she's dying in Luke's... Or even, especially after I made that whole comment, like, oh, look at them kind of hitting it off. And it's like, oh, that was cut short. It's like I said, and the thing is, any semblance of Beth that was still left inside of Alice, that died the moment she was like, oh, I see where it is. Like, she still held out on some shape or form, hoping for Kate. And maybe if Kate had saved her, maybe things could be potentially different. But now that Kate made that choice, the ramifications for this are going to be, I'd say, straight up biblical. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where things go. I mean, granted, Alice is kind of on her own. I mean, she still has the Wonder Gang, but obviously Mouse is with his dad. But then his dad's probably going to find out that Alice is still alive. And then there's going to be the whole thing of Sophie finding out, wait, Alice, what? I'm confused. Maybe she's going to think like it was someone else in disguise. I don't know how that whole situation is going to play out. Like I said, because of that, you assume that Beth is dead. But maybe they'll be able to do something about it. But the fact is that Alice got better makes me think, which also sucks too, because it's like, considering the fact is that she literally it's almost sad because it seems like unless you're a part of this Earth Prime, it's just like, it seems like fate does not work out for you. I mean, once again, it's just like the multiverse, well, now the universe, soul universe, because obviously there's only one Earth for right now, just some cosmic middle finger, some cosmic joke, so it's sad. I'm very, very interested to see ultimately where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.